John, first I want to thank you for letting us have the film, but more especially I want to thank both of you for being with us at this hour of the evening. I think the film is one of the most impressive pictures made this past year, particularly because of the tremendous honesty that I sense in it, the relationships that are involved, and the intensity of the performances which brings these out before us. And it's so different from the conventional film in terms of concept, in terms of the whole creative style of it, but it's very difficult to know exactly where to begin in discussing the film. And I don't want to take too much time because I'm sure that there are many, many questions out here. But basically what I'd like to ask both of you is the difference in approach, if there is one, between the way you have made this picture, the kind of values that you were reaching for in making the picture, and a, quote, entertainment movie. Now, I'm not saying that this is not entertainment, but it's entertainment on quite a different level from the Towering Inferno. To which one is that?
Well, I think that there's a very small part of all of us that has any kind of value. I think there's a small part of us that says we'd like to be something, we'd like to say something better than what is usually said on the purest level. And the rest of it is con man and struggling people just like everyone else, and where you're constantly humiliated and go through your life, even when you're not humiliated, thinking you are. And then you get very lucky and you meet a group of creative people that are very much like you, who are locked up in their own selves, trying to come out, trying to in some way express something that is very personal to them. And you meet these people, and I married one of them, and friends with the other one, and friends with all the people that make the film. And somehow we don't know what we're doing. There's no way of knowing what you're doing. And I think that the basis of making a film where it's more of a community effort, a community situation of creativity. There can't be any bargain to that. So you have to deal with people on their own level, one-to-one, and not feel you're making anything, not feel you're doing anything. And then suddenly one thing develops and another thing develops, and Gena has a fantastic day, and we respond to it, and Peter has a fantastic day, and the rest of the actors come in and they want to do something, and it all happens out of a day-by-day situation, and the commitment comes and grows more and more into something that little part of you that isn't a con man, and all of us get better as a result of making that picture, and the picture then has no importance really until you then see it, or someone sees it and says, yeah, that's all right, that was good, or somebody's very touched, or somebody's bitter, and then ideas that we never even had seen, collectively we've never seen, suddenly someone else sees. And I really feel that the script is then written by what you can get out of it and how much it means to you. And if it means nothing to you, we start again and try to put ourselves up and communicate with you in that way. But What was your question?
I'm trying to see whether, I think maybe Gena might be a bit more objective about it than you. Because you've worked with many other directors, both on stage and on the screen. And are there different values, different levels of emotion that John is going for that other directors, perhaps because they don't have the time or concern, tend to ignore?
Well, I'm in a funny position because.
Oh, forget that you're married to him.
I mean, it sounds as if I'm scratching his back. So when I say what is really true, he sets a creative atmosphere that is unlike any that I have ever worked in, and he makes the actor the most important person, or that you feel you're the most important person involved. You feel that you have all of your time and perfect freedom to develop your character without a lot of technical things, like hitting marks on the floor and standing for lights and things that are normal procedure on most pictures. The atmosphere is so much different that I think that, and also from my point of view, it's the greatest part that I've ever had in my life. So that makes a great deal of difference too.
Well, another thing before we go to the class, how long did you spend shooting it?
13 weeks.
How long did you spend editing it?
Year and a half.
13 months. What happens in the editing room? Because I know that's a great deal where this picture really.
Well, we look at Gena and we look at Peter and we look at the rest of the characters, and then we pray that we don't screw them up in some way, because Gena is a miraculous actress, and I think Peter is a miraculous actor. And you can't really tell until you see take after take of these people being just absolutely true to themselves. They can break your heart in every take, and it's a terrible responsibility to come in and have the terrible fear on all of our parts that we will screw up something. So then we start to go to work with our preconceived notions of how a scene is going to play well, and we do it, and all of us take a shot at it. Maybe there are 5 or 6 people working in the editing room, all of us wanting to get at the scene and trying, terribly excited by the material that we have. And there's a lot of material. There's 700,000 feet of film there. And
35 millimeter film?
Yeah, 35 millimeter. Thank God this time. So what happens is that you realize that you can't edit the film any more than you can direct that film, or that it really is a product of a group of people coming in and interpreting their roles, really truthfully interpreting their roles. Everything that Gena did, she did herself. Everything that Peter did, he did himself. Everything that all those other actors did, that they did themselves. I give a lot of house, if there's any credit to be given, it is to the people that work behind the camera, who were the damnedest crew, because they really were for the actor and put themselves second. And if they saw something wrong, they just went like this, but didn't let anyone else see it, And we would light generally, light the whole picture generally, and let the actors play it to the best of their ability. And then in the editing was a terrible trial and error, in which we screwed up the movie, put it together, screwed it up, had a nice version, tried to fix it, screwed it up, tried to fix it, screwed it up, and eventually this is what came out. And the rhythms and the idea of what's happening aren't dictated by movie terms, because this isn't a movie.
It seems to me that one of the biggest difficulties that you faced with all of that footage, and with actors and actresses performing at peak level, was to find what was the center of each of those scenes and not say, we'll go with Gena because she's brilliant at this point, and cut away from Peter when it's really Peter's scene. That kind of problem you probably had to face over and over again.
Well, the way I shoot, yeah.
Let's see what questions there are out here. Yes.
I saw the movie this past summer, and I think that it was more since then.
Yes, he was in the class last summer.
Oh, in the summer, yeah. Yeah.
Those quite a few changes.
I think you're right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Studying from, I know how difficult it is to play someone who has mental unbalance of some kind. Wonderfully that is the word. How did you, can you talk some on how you went about finding Mabel? How much of Mabel was you? How did you obtain that spark? Because you were so alive, so wonderful, and that's just almost impossible to film it. I admire you so much.
Thank you.
I'd like to hear.
Well, I didn't have to look too far away from home to find Mabel, actually. It's a question of finding things in yourself and developing them to a different level. And really, that's all I can. That's the only clue I can give to how I study, because I don't have a very clearly defined way of studying. It's more instinctive than orderly. And I just, I got the part, and after I got over the amazement and that stunning moment when I realized it was actually there in black and white in my hands and nobody could get it away from me, and that I just read it. I read it and read it and read it, and then I just went around muttering to myself, for some time until it and it just developed sort of by itself. But it's when you have a great part. I mean, you can't do anything with a stinking part. You really can't. If you can do anything, you're lucky. But this is truly an actress's dream, this part. And I have to give the author, who shall go nameless, credit.
Well, let me ask Mr. Anonymous over here the reverse of that question. As you were writing it, did you have Gena in mind, and how much of the character that you created was Gena as you were writing it? All in the family, folks.
Making movies is part vengeance. If you don't like what you're doing, you shouldn't do it. No. The truth is, Gena told me to write something for her. I'm an obedient person. Gena said to me, and if you go out to dinner with Gena, she never wants anything, and then the minute you order something that she likes, she will eat it.
There's no use to be personal.
No, but this whole movie's personal. What are you talking about? So the idea is that Gena really wanted to do a play on Broadway, and I had always fancied that I could write a play. So I was very delighted, and she said, no, look, deal with it from a woman's point of view. I mean, deal with it so that I have a part in this thing. And say, okay, and I went off and had been thinking about it for a year anyway, and had taken about 7 or 8 tries at bad plays, and came up with this play, which was not the play that the movie was, but it was based on the same characters. And Gena read it, and from my point of view, she said no, she wouldn't do it. And so I'm very stubborn, so I didn't realize that she liked the part, but that on the stage, to play that every night would kill her. I had no concept of that because we're all obsessed, as you all know. Everyone's obsessed that is in this stupid thing. And so I wrote another play on the same subject with the same characters, deepening the characters and making it even more difficult to play. And I gave it to Jen, and she said, I like that tremendously. I like the first one too, but I don't think I could do that on Broadway. So I wrote another play. And so now there were 3 plays, and I quickly took the plays after Jen read them, and I took them to New York, and I got a producer to produce the plays on Broadway. I thought it was a terrific idea to do these 3 plays on consecutive nights with matinees, you see. Gena has 3 kids. We have 3 kids and a family, and Jena's not a particularly ambitious woman in the trade as it goes, although if she sees a good part, she'll kill herself for it. But, I mean, kill herself performing it, but not getting it. I mean, it's either given to her, or she'll play with the kids, or do something else, or go out.
I'm sure I like my portrait.
So, the idea is that I don't like plays anyway. I've always been hooked on movies. So, Peter and Elaine May and I were in New York, and we were about to make another movie, Mikey and Nicky, and Elaine said, let's read your plays. So this is what we do instead of going out to restaurants and things. We sat down and read the play, and Peter says, I'll play the husband. And I said, Peter, I don't know if you could play that. What kind of a part is that for you to play? Heavy. You're the most loved character in the world. Lying. I wanted him to play. But if you say, please, Peter, play this, he won't play it. So you got to say, Peter, you don't play it. You can't play it. And then he wants to play. What do you mean I can't play? I can play anything. So it's not all lying, but anyway, so he then got an offer from Mike Nichols to be in the Fish picture. After he committed. So he said, but John, you don't have a date. I said, we do. We have a November date. And Jena's in it, and you're in it. We're going to have a reading. We're going to get all these people who are going to read it now.
You should be eternally grateful for saving him from that.
He couldn't do it because he already committed. He says, what do you mean? You can't start. You don't have the money. So I made him put up half the money. And we started. And we just started to make the picture. And I forgot the question again. I'm sorry.
Well, it was how much of the character. You've answered it. It's okay. It was how much of the
somewhere there, you know.
Don't think about it.
While we're on the subject, would you tell the class a little bit about your relationship with the American Film Institute and the making of the film? Because this one is not done by Universal.
Oh, that's right. Universal this time didn't have anything. The American Film Institute, as far as I knew, was a place where some illegal act had taken place. Somebody had killed somebody. I knew that in the Greystone Mansion. And
it was before George Stevens took over. It's still happening again.
But then I found out that there are fellows there. They give up fellowships, and we didn't have any money and any way to make the picture. So I thought, well, I'm an American. There's an American Film Institute. I'm a student. No one's ever accused me of being professional. So we went to the American Film Institute, had a talk with everybody, and I said, I'd like to be a fellow here. And they said, fine, it'd be wonderful. You mean you'd like to? I said, yeah, we'd just like some housing and a place to work and some editing rooms. And they said,
telephone.
And a telephone. And then we put in our own telephone and had our own people. And the deal was that we were supposed to allow the people to come and audit the movie, come and watch the way the movie is being made. But I can't let somebody just stand there while we're making the movie. It'd make me uncomfortable, make everyone uncomfortable, so we asked everyone to work or get out. And then I realized that most of the people at the American Film Institute were directors and really quite knowledgeable, and were there to make their own films. And so we became friends instead. A lot of the people at the American Film Institute, we became friends. We screened their work, they screened our work, and we schnorred equipment, they schnorred equipment. We got everything that we... I don't know, my relationship with the Institute is one of a 2-year relationship where we were there really as students, really being there, taking advantage of the place the way everyone else was. And they were terribly cooperative and very nice to us. I think the only thing wrong with the American Film Institute is that it isn't bigger and it doesn't have greater facilities, and that it's such a very, very, very tight business, and I see that everyone that's going into it, I don't know where all the room is going to come from. I mean, the dedication of what you do has to come from the work that you put into it, and I don't know how there's so many universities in this country that all have film as a background and as classes. And there must be, I promise you, there must be 1 million or 2 million people interested in a film career.
And they all want to be directors.
And there isn't going to be any crew. And for sure not going to be any writers unless there's some understanding of the value of writers to film, and some understanding of actors to film, and some understanding of women's roles in film, and some understanding of men's roles in film as people, not just as a commercial outlook, because no one's going to be able to make that much money, because you divide 1 million by and you're not going to be able to make it.
Actually, I don't know whether this is since...
I don't know anything about the American Film Institute except a place.
This may be since you've left, but they have inaugurated an acting course now with Nina Foch, and also a writing program which is being done in association with the Writers Guild. And they have 2 professional writers, Lois Pizer, I forget who the other one is, and they work directly with the students in developing script, which is a very necessary thing. More questions? Yes?
I think the children are tremendous, and I'm just curious, as a director, how did you work with those children? I know they were your children, so did you relate to them in terms of them being your children and just letting them go, or was it more like director, actor, type of thing? I want to know how you work with the children.
Well, you know, children don't belong on a set, you know.
Those weren't our children, by the way. Those 3 children weren't our children.
There was a terrible woman that was there from the union that was watching those kids. And now probably wasn't a terrible woman, but she was to me, because the little girl was only 4, and she could only work 15 minutes a day. Which had to be explained to me for 2 hours. In the working with the children, Seymour Cassell, I don't know whether you know him, who was in Minnie and Moskowitz. He's a very good actor and a good friend of mine and of ours. And his son played the oldest boy. The fellow on the beach, Grimaldi, the fellow on the beach that walked around and told the story about his brother being a communist and all, he had a daughter. And he said, my daughter can play the shit out of this part. And I said, oh, terrific. Bring her in. And she's sensational. She's a great actress who will only act when it's a close-up. Will not act. Not only will not act, will mug will ruin the shot for you. If she knows it's a long shot, how does she know that she has radar? And as soon as it's a long shot, she goes like this. But if it's a close-up, she breaks your heart. She looks up and does everything right. And the other boy is a professional actor, Matthew Laborto. And those three kids were, I asked Seymour what to do because he's really good with children. And Sam Shaw, who's our producer, who loves children, he's a great photographer. He's taken all thousands of kids' pictures. And he just loves children. He doesn't care about movies or anything. He just loves kids. So he said, don't be cruel to these kids. I know you. You'll be cruel to these kids. I'll kill them or kick them, but I won't be cruel. So, but we talked about it, and we said that the only thing to do with the kids is to keep them out of it, keep it unimportant for them, as long as we don't have them anyway. So they just caught on. They just caught on to the spirit. They were out playing whenever they could. Whenever they came in, we'd shot them individually, and until the last scene. And the last scene, somehow, they just accepted the fact that it was a game. And they were having fun. Well, we weren't, but they were having a lot of fun. And when they came in and they saw Peter attacking their mother, who they accepted to be their mother, they instantaneously reacted in the way you saw them. I mean, there was no direction. There was no staging. There's no anything. It's just the fact that those kids accepted the fact that Gena or Mabel Longhetti was their mother, and that Peter Falk was Nick Longhetti was their father. And they behaved in that manner.
How many takes on that one?
You can do as many takes as you want, as long as the
situation could
conditions.
play over again.
Yeah, because you don't hear, the kids didn't hear you say, let's do it again. They just know that it's still happening. And so we must have done 5 or 6 takes.
That's one thing, though, that you did differently, I would say, is that he never said take or action or anything, so that they were never aware when the camera was running, except for Maria, who always knew somehow.
But I mean, obviously, you know, they had to go up the stairs, and you know, and Peter had to take them up the stairs, so that was his function, to take them up the stairs. So I'd say to Peter, all right, you have to get them up the stairs, and that was his function, to take them up there. And then they'd run down by themselves. So in that sense, I guess it's improvisational, because it's what happens, you know. And you either like what happens when you see what happens, or you don't. And I did. I liked what happened.
Except I think you should make a point, John, that this word improvisational, as we were talking about earlier before while the class was looking at the film, the word improvisational has come to mean much too much of just throwing the script away and doing your thing, which isn't the way you work.
No, no. Certain times we rehearse extremely hard for long periods of time, maybe 2 days. I mean, the table scene, the spaghetti scene was rehearsed for a couple of days before we shot it, and without the spaghetti. And then consequently, the end scene where Gena came home, with the sitting around the table, was rehearsed for two solid days. Some things can be loose, some things cannot be. It all depends on what they are and what the degree of difficulty is in performing them.
Yeah.
You began writing this after Save the Tiger. I'm curious, because it seems to me that in that film, Jack Lemmon showed his relationship with the outside world, voted against it, and it seemed to be more directed towards the actor than a technical sense. Low budget film. I think it had a lot of handheld shots in it and such, as this film, which portrayed Gena and showed more of her nature as an actress, and whether her as an actress, Peter Falk as an actor, more than could be a technical in this film. And I saw a lot of handheld shots in this too. Just curious if.
What's the point? I don't know.
What, did you make it after Save the Tiger or before?
Oh, after Save the Tiger?
Yeah.
I haven't got any idea. We started it 2.5 years ago.
It just seemed to me to be very close to
I never saw Save the Tiger. I'm sorry.
It's in the air. Yes.
That's right.
Can you expound a little more on how you, as a director, prepared your actors for the brilliant jobs they did? How long rehearsal did you go into before you started filming? And just what was it that you gave them that showed through the way you did?
Well, I think every actor is different, like every person is different. The main thing, if you're an actor and you're standing there, you don't know what's going to happen. You're meeting 12 strangers, and you see a bunch of people standing behind the camera, and the lights all over the place, and obviously it's being lit for one specific area because all the lights are there, so you see that, and you don't know what you're going to do. So the question is, at what point do you reveal what's going to happen? My system is never to reveal it. My system is to create as much confusion as I possibly can, so the actors have the full knowledge that they're on their own. That there is nothing I'm ever going to tell them, ever, at any point in the thing, except if somebody would say, I think I'm going too far, I would disagree with them. Or if somebody would say, let's take a break, I would disagree with them. Or if somebody would small talk, or, in other words, you are now to reveal your life, and parts of your life. And parts of your life that you don't even know exist. Right? And Gena reads the script, and I tend to disagree with her saying it's the greatest part, because it isn't. She makes it the greatest part, but just give me a moment. The idea is that she takes and interprets that woman as someone that is innocent. That's not my interpretation. It's not in the script. You could interpret it as a person that fights it. She interprets it as someone that's innocent. She's crazy, but she's shy too, really. She's not an outward person, really. She's outward because she thinks she is. She thinks she's supposed to be. She wants to please somebody. All these things that are happening are revelations to me also. I'm seeing Gena do this. And Gena, as my wife, now suddenly is becoming Mabel Longhetti, and those pink socks are becoming something that you see on somebody. Those nice legs are becoming nice legs, and her manner of insanity is recognizable, and suddenly she's not insane. And all these discoveries that are happening to her are also happening to us, and so we become attuned and sensitive to what this person is trying to say. So we try to make it easier for her to say that, easier for her to express herself. So if I see her doing something that maybe someone wouldn't see, it will become terribly important that I shoot that. And that we shoot it, and that I don't say, let's move the camera in and get her in that moment. The poor thing would be destroyed. That would destroy her. And yet we must give those instructions. Those are instructions you have to give, that you have to be on that person at one time or another. So I anticipate that, and I say, okay, wait a minute. We have no money, but we're going to spend money in one area. We're going to shoot a lot of film. Simply because I'm not going to stop and say, let's go back and get that moment of that woman, or of that man, or of this whole area of work and endeavor. When you multiply that performance by 12 performances, by 14 performances, each person coming in with something else. The doctor will say, geez, I don't want to step on her performance. She's really good, And I'm just, I don't know what to do. And this guy's, Eddie Shore, he's the producer's brother, who came in and we didn't have anyone to play the thing, and he said he'd play it. It was the greatest thrill in his life to play this doctor. So when he came in, he kept on saying, what do I do? I thought, that's wonderful. That's a great kind of a doctor to have. That's That's the doctors that I've known. This guy says, where does it hurt? He should. Why should I tell him? And the mother, played by my mother, who was Peter's mother, came to me and said, I don't want to play that part. Let me cast it for you. I see a lot of people on there that are really terrific. I said, why do you don't want to play it? She said, because she's unsympathetic. Why should I play that part? You know? So in my way, she doesn't know what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, aha, you don't have to be my mother anymore. You're an actress now. From now on, we're all equal. Everything is equalized. And my father, who played Adolf, honestly, he said, what do I do, John? I said, just be hungry, Dad, that's all. So you handle it that way. Gena's mother, Gena came to me when we got married. She said, look, one thing you got to get straight. I got a mother complex. And this is my mother, and you got to be nice to her always. I said, okay, you've got to be nice to my mother. Maybe more difficult for you. And so she played Gena's mother, and it was difficult because that was a committed part. It was difficult because she had to be something. It was difficult because she had to not like her. She had to love her but not like her. So it was very difficult because a relationship is both like and love. And it was difficult for Gena because anything that her mother does is terrific.
That's true.
So I enjoyed terribly much making them not like each other. And I enjoyed the double cross that existed between these two people, you know. I enjoyed it. I had a terrific time watching Gena's mother not do that. And yet, in her way, she found some understanding. She found terrific understanding of the character, of getting on the bed, of not liking somebody and loving them, and having the privilege of doing that. You know, so that becomes a discovery. And then you have to catch that in whichever way you can. And all these people sit there and they have to trust that whatever they're doing, all these individuals, they're doing all individual things, and they're doing to the fullest of their ability. They got to trust that somehow at the end of it, it's going to be a movie. So all I can tell you is what I did. All I can tell you is that I made that so impossible for it to be a good movie that they just had to address themselves to the problem that they had, because there's no possibility that the way we were working, anything could ever come out in a movie theater. Now, you said you had seen the movie before, right? Well, it was a long, involved, painful, and in many ways, a mess. In many ways, too painful. And the only way you can make a good movie is to do things that you like. In the end, all the ideas, and I know that women will connect with the Mabel character, and well, they might, because Gena has given you something to connect with. And I think that men can connect with the Nick character if they want to admit that they're really people. But you don't get a chance to see a guy like Nick on the screen very often. A guy that will really say, I'm going to be the way I am at home, and not the way I am in front of people, and not the way I want to appear to my girlfriend or to my wife or to the world at large. So a guy like Peter Falk, who could, with a smile, get out of any situation, goes up there and he, in a great way, speaks about the emotional ignorance that all men feel to all women. And obviously he's got to be the loser. He's got to be the loser because he does something wrong. He double crosses this woman. You know? So all in all, when you start to make a film, these are the things that we think about, just in a short explanation to you. These are the things that we think about in making the film, rather than the technical aspects. And the crew is brought into these discussions and into these problems, and they try to help solve them by making the problems of the actors in these interpretations as easy as possible. Then we get into the cutting room and try to iron it out the best way we can.
Gena, before we leave this point, didn't he ever say to you, no, you're wrong, that's not the way I see the character?
No, never. I don't think he would ever say that to any actor. What he says essentially, though it's more humorous the way that he puts it, it's essentially true that he sets a chaotic sort of atmosphere on the set that you would think would be very difficult to work in, but on the contrary, it takes the pressure off of you. And he very seldom gives a specific direction, very seldom. And yet, somehow, I don't know how you feel when you're doing poorly and you feel when you're doing well. I'm not quite sure how he gets that across. I really am not. But no, he's not a depression type director that likes to break you down and then build you back up again. I think perhaps that he has, perhaps the fact that he writes his own script and knows the actor who's going to play it too, perhaps influences it.
Also love you, so that in this sense, I love Jena's acting above anything else about her. That's hard to say, but I really feel that she's really an exquisitely talented person. And I couldn't love her if she wasn't a good actress. It does kill me, but I couldn't. And I don't think that she could really love me if I didn't do that, because we're freaks. We are. We're absolutely freakishly obsessed with wanting to convey something that is very hard for us to express in our life. And I see Gena around the house and with the kids and with the thing, and I do tape record what I see. I do tape record things and exaggerate them and blow them up. And the incidents are not the same. But it just seems to me that women are alone, and they are prisoner by their own love. They are made prisoner. If they commit to something, then they are committed to it, and it's a torture. And it's true. I see it in our relationship, and I feel it too. And a man feels that also. And nobody knows how to handle it. Nobody knows how to handle it. And so that if I say we're going to make a picture and we don't know what we're doing, I'm absolutely straight when I say that. I don't think that Gena has any idea when she comes on the set that she's going to be able to break down, have a commitment scene, be frightened when she comes in. And I see her when I come home at night, and I see her on the bed with the script, and I see her going over it and thinking about it and relating to everything and preparing herself and asking me questions which I can't answer. Maybe superficial questions I could answer, like what are you going to wear, or what, we'll talk about that tomorrow. I'll give her some specific answer. But the idea is that suddenly you find that everybody is working toward one regard, not because we all got together and said, let's go ahead and make a movie, but because the questions that are asked are worthy of your time. The question that is asked in a movie like this is really worthy of your time. I don't even feel embarrassed about it. I don't feel that it's a movie at all. I feel that it does connect with what the mystery of a family and mother-in-laws and mothers, and the fact that she's a mother and will be a mother-in-law too, the fact that we all are living in this crazy world where we hate and love at the same time is more important to me than seeing somebody shoot somebody in the eye and seeing the effect of the eye popping. It may not be as entertaining always. May not be as entertaining, and may not be the mood that you want to see. But it's enough to keep us going for 2.5 years. and enough to make us distribute the picture ourselves.
Obviously, this is one of the mavericks that Orson Welles was talking about the other evening, in whose name he accepted the award from the American Film Institute. Well, yes.
Well, did you see yourself as a loser or a winner thematically? It seemed to me you were in, fighting odds in the same world.
I see anybody who loves as a winner. Even though it's torture, and even though it may not be the right love, may not be the right person, may not be the right, still there's something so amazing about love. I thought within the picture that there was a change in my husband. I thought that while Mabel was away at the institution, that Nick, how many of us have let somebody slip through our fingers almost by mistake? I mean, it is a mistake. It's almost inadvertent. They're gone, and you did it, and you can't bring them back. Usually you don't have a second chance, and it's not till then that you realize their importance. And I think that that's what happened to Nick. I think that he got tired of putting up with me and aggravated by my eccentricity in the scenes and the differentness from his traditional life, and with his mother lighting a fire too all of the time, so that he temporarily forgot his love for Mabel and let her go. Because I don't think she would have had to go to the institution. I don't think anything could have sent her to the institution except her feeling that he no longer loved her, because that's what she based her whole existence on. So I think that he realized while she was away her importance to him. I think he missed her and longed for her to be back, and really did want her to be back with her, the things that amused him most of the time and embarrassed him when there were other people there. And I think that he showed it in the scene where she goes to commit suicide and starts going through that whole bad, terrible scene, and she starts to fall back into what she was in. And he will not wash his hands of her at that point. He doesn't call a doctor and say, look, you sent her back too soon, take her back, fix her up, and bring her when she's more acceptable. In essence, everything he said, though he said it very ignorantly in many ways, he really was saying, I'm not going to let you go. I don't care where you go. I'm emotionally and in your head or any place else. I am coming with you. I will not let you escape me because I love you. Even though he doesn't know how to say those things. So that I think that there was a turnaround. Not a big turnaround, because a man who's traditional like that doesn't make a 180-degree turn. If he turns at all, it's earth-shaking. And for Mabel, that's enough. And I feel hopeful about the end. I feel that there will be perhaps not your perfect relationship, but for them, I think she's a winner in that sense.
If that's what you brought around, it was being big as well as worse.
Yes, I think she realized that.
I don't think she was crazy when she came home, was she?
No, he means when at the end, when I was committing suicide on the sofa, and
Yeah, but then you feel that I felt that she was just worthless.
You've never understood this.
I know.
Barry?
Cassavetes, did you have any temptation to play Nick, and do you think a director can take on the role of an actor in it together?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, I wouldn't play that part for all the money in the world. And I think that Peter has more courage than I'll ever have as an actor. I mean, because to play that part, knowing he's a very smart, ring-wise actor, and to know that you're going in there and you're going to lose. In the end, it's not going to be your picture. Let me put it in the crudest terms that you want, that it's not going to be Peter Falk's picture. And yet, I never saw a guy capable of so much, restraining himself and containing himself to the point where he's involved enough to when his wife is going to be committed and his own mother says to her, your children are funny, to have a sense of, to be able to have the same kind of sense of humor about his mother, even in the most terrible situation. To go, doc, doc, doc. When I saw Peter go like this, I almost fainted. And I want people to do what they want to do, but I almost fainted. I had to hide it. I thought, what the hell is he doing? Click, click, click. I can't figure it out, and yet Peter is a person. He's behaving like a person. Strange, but then Peter's strange. So he came to me afterwards and he said, you think that's too much? I went like that, He said to the mother, maybe I should be more sensitive to Gena. And I said, no, I thought it was fine. And because you really can't control a scene. You can't control life. What happens in family relationships, if you were really to ever put a tape recorder to your emotions, forget about what's being said, because it could be said much more contained. Everything that's said there in that commitment scene. There wasn't one thing that was said there to be petty. There wasn't one thing said by anybody to be petty. The only petty act that was committed in the whole film, as far as I'm concerned, is when Gena said you made a jerk of yourself and Peter couldn't take it. You know? So, I forget everything.
My question again was, do you think a director should take on the role of an actor?
No, I don't.
Can I tell you something that was said to me a long time ago? I did an interview with Laurence Olivier, and he said that he would never direct himself in a film unless it was something that he had played on the stage so many times that he knew that character inside out. Otherwise, he wants somebody else to do the directing.
It's unfair to the other actors anyway. It's unfair to everyone you're working with.
Well, it seems to me you're trying to convey some type of emotion throughout the whole thing, and that's very hard to express to someone else how to do. There's something from within.
But it's unfair to those other actors because they're quite aware that you're looking at them. I mean, if you were acting in a movie right now and I was your director and I sat there, I don't have to say anything. You'll always check with me. I know that. I know that you want to please me in some strange sense, that every actor wants to please the director. It's what we're trained for. I mean, somehow it's the form of motion pictures or stage or whatever. The director is the only person that the actor can communicate with. It doesn't mean that they like the director or even have respect for him, but that's where the anger comes from if you can't have respect for the director, you know? So even no matter how cool an actor is, you're always aware that they want your approval. You know, and if you're playing with them at the same time, it really becomes very difficult on the other actors, much more so than the problem of getting in front of the camera and behind.
Yes.
How do you feel then about Husbands?
How do you feel about the film Husbands?
Which you direct and you're...
Well, I thought it was very much easier on everybody when it wasn't so hard for me, at least, being away from Benny and Peter. But when I was with Benny and Peter, I was never anything but a director. and pushing a scene or doing it. It was just like you being on the stage. I mean, to the detriment. I mean, many times in the picture I called Benny Ben, and I mean, it just no way out. It's awful on them.
Is there anything that you consciously do to create the spirit in your crew and your actors? Or is it something that just happens? Have you ever made a movie where that spirit never emerged?
The question is, have you ever made a movie, or rather, is there anything special that you do to create a spirit in the crew?
Yeah, there's one thing you do. Just never worry about yourself or how you're going to look or how you behave. I mean, at one time, I remember when we were doing Faces, Lynn Carlin had not acted before, and when she came on, she wasn't really a very good actress when she started on the picture. Not because of anything, because she went home with her mother, and her mother cued her on her lines, you know. And John Marley, I remember John Marley saying, "Jesus, John, Christ, we're going to put years of our life into this damn thing, and this girl can't do this." You know, and she did read lines like this. "Oh, hello, how are you? So and so and so on." And I remember looking at him and thinking, and I have never thought of that, the fact that she was bad. You know, I never dreamed that she was bad, only that she would be better. You know, only that this is just the first stage. And yet I realized that it was very difficult for him, so I had to fix him, not her. So I said, "She's great. You're in trouble." You know? And he got furious with me, and that made it right, because he had no ally there to lean on. And then I went to Lynn and said, "Lynn, he hates you. This man hates you. And there's only one way you can save yourself." And she says, tell me. Hate him back. And in a way that maybe that's chicanery, but it was true. It was true for the moment. The minute they played a scene well together, they loved each other. And I think the only way that I could ever get any spirit out of the thing is to absolutely try to tell the truth in such a way that it will work. You know? In such a way that it will work, so that nobody... I mean, when you're working on a movie, everybody, the crew, everybody, the writer, everybody is paranoid. Go with that premise. It's like a bunch of Maine people listening to the walls with a glass, you know, to hear what's happening in the next room. Everybody wants to know everything. Everyone wants the credit for everything in the beginning. Everyone wants to show you how much they're doing, and wants to show themselves, and is mad at the other guy for not doing something, or the other actress for not... I mean, this is standard. And this is very healthy, because that means that everybody that's involved cares. So you got to find some way to project into the future, to know that what we want to do is have everyone eventually working together and liking each other because they're doing a good job together, and that they're winning, that they're going to win. You know? So in the beginning, it's always very tough to create an atmosphere. I don't try to create an atmosphere. If I see something where people are fighting amongst themselves, I'll be the heavy. I'll say, "What the hell is going on here, for Christ's sake? What, did you hear that? Did you hear it?" And everyone goes. You know? And then I'll say, "Sweetheart, when the thing is," and they all look at you and they think, this person is totally bananas. And it's true. You have to do it, because you can't worry. Because I've gone for 10 days on a set where people look at me like this. All right. And you can't worry about it, because those same people will like you if you do a good job. You know, I want to be liked just as much as the next person. When the actors, but also the actors want to be liked, the writers want to be liked, the cameraman wants to be liked. You talk to the actors, and the cameraman says, "Is he ever going to come over?" And everyone wants an approval. So the whole thing is to give nobody any approval on a lousy sense. You know, to give everyone just exactly what they give you, and no more. If somebody wants to give you something, then you give it back to them in the same manner. You're as open as somebody else will be with you. Because what we're trying to do is trying to open people up to where they can express themselves for you as an audience. And if they hold back, then they're not expressing themselves for you as an audience. So the script to me is a blueprint of what we have to work with. And then everyone on our crew came in, knocked on our door, and said, I have terrific experience. I've worked on a lot of films, and and I'd like to very much work. Money is no consideration. I'd really like to work with you. And you don't hear that. You just know that they're there, and that they wouldn't be there, no matter how they're behaving, unless they wanted to be there. So the way I cast a crew is to say the first people that come up to ask for the job, those are the people that are going to be the crew, because they're the first people that were concerned. And when they don't want to be there anymore, they're going to leave, you know? And the only way they're going to leave is if they have no stake, because the work is too hard unless you have a stake. And I think the same thing holds true for actors. I think there should be a course on how to deal with stars, because if anyone here is going to be a director, or is interested in direction or producing, the hardest thing is to make that communication with people that are not your peers. Really, that they have accomplished something in their own minds or through the industry's mind, working with a superstar cameraman, working with people when you or yourself have not earned that right to walk freely, you know? And I think the only way you can do that is to not be concerned with what you are. I mean, however right or wrong that is, you got to be yourself, because if it's not good enough, it's not going to be good enough. Then you're just going to fail. But you can't alter yourself for anybody. In other words, Polanski has a way of dealing with actors. It works for him. Hal Wallace has a way of dealing with writers, and it works for him. Everyone has their own way. I've never seen a successful person in this business, artistically successful, that gives way on important issues and that considers himself beyond the picture that you're doing. Because you just got to be prepared in one way or the other, though you don't say it because it's too corny to say. You got to be ready to die for the movie. That's it. There's nothing else. Because you will. I mean, my first job as an actor, I jumped from here to 20 feet. And the director said, jump, jump. And there was a tugboat going out with propellers going out. I didn't realize that. I just wanted to make the jump look good, you know? So I jumped over the thing. Marty Ritt was the director. He came up to me and punched me right in the face. Because his whole career went out the window. His 20 years of waiting for that picture, to direct that picture, went out. He was prepared to kill. I would be prepared to kill. I would be prepared to steal, prepared to lie to the outside world, prepared to do anything to make that movie. And if you're not, you never make it. Because you'll be polite, and you'll fall into a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with what you're doing. You know?
So, while we're still on the crew, since your actors are free to move about, they don't have to hit a mark. That creates problems for the cameraman, it creates problems for the sound man, and don't you have to set up some kind of closer rapport between yourself and them than would be the normal case?
Yes.
They have to anticipate, in other words.
They watch. In other words, everyone always rehearses. They're rehearsing for hours. They're rehearsing or walking around doing the scene for hours. If you're out playing cards, if you're out talking or making points with a producer, or Elaine May comes on a set and you want to get her coffee, go ahead and get her coffee. Then you'll blow the scene. You know? If you really are interested, you have lots of time to know what's happening. It's much easier for an operator to follow action that's free and natural than staged action. You know every move. To give you an example, here's the way an actor, to me, moves when he's staged. Impossible to follow. I mean, it's just impossible. When a person is free, how can you not follow him? You're so concentrated on what's happening that there's no way to do it wrong. But if the action is wrong and you don't believe it and you're not zeroed into it and it's phony and it stinks, your photography stinks, you know? And so you don't like it and you want to do it again, or you miss it. And I think that's a fallacy, and it's a nonsense rule that's been passed down, and a very uneducated guess as to what it really is like. I think it's much easier not to stage, and much easier. Of course, you must be prepared. The sound must be prepared. The film has to be in the camera. The focus puller has to know approximately what his distances are. Okay, we're in a room here, and I have a camera, and I got to shoot everybody in this room. That's the problem. So you want to be a good technician, measure everybody and mark it down. If you want to be a better technician and better at your job, you got to have good depth perception to be a good focus puller. You have to have good depth perception. You got to know that this is approximately 12 feet. And you got to know that it's 12 feet, and then you check it by eye, and then you go here, that's 14, that's 16, 18. So you know how many rows there are, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you count them. And if you're good at your job, you'll do your own homework, and you won't wait and you say, now here's this whole group, and we're doing this scene here. That's all it can be. We're in 3 chairs here, man. And you're in your chairs. No one's moving around. It's the easiest scene in the world to do. So the lighting man has got to figure out before everyone comes in to light it. Now, if he has an adjustment, no one cares. You know? But you're going to walk in and you say, put everyone where they're going to be. Now, we're going to move everyone out of here. Now, we're going to put everyone, and somebody's going to walk around saying, you're in seat 1, you're in seat 2, you're in seat 3, you're in seat 4, you're in seat 5. And it can go on indefinitely, and that's what they do to get their technical perfection. Now, who the hell cares whether you're there or you're there? It doesn't make any difference. The lighting still has to be the same. And what they're really saying in their way is saying, give me a lot of time to light, and I don't want to be pushed because I don't want this to look bad so Bobby Evans can go to a screening room and say this guy was in the dark or out of focus. Because everyone double crosses you when you sit in the projection room. You're a technician and you're sitting there, and all the executives are sitting in this room and they see something out of focus and say, what happened here? Run that back. Who is that cameraman? And the director's sitting there and he knows who the cameraman is. Well, Evans knows who the cameraman is too. So what you're saying is it's his fault. You know? And so on and so forth. That's a professional film. A professional film is one built on fear and not one built on a relationship between people. And yet everybody in this room would love to work for Universal Pictures or work for all those other studios. And what we do in the greatest sense is try to offer an option for people that would like to be independent with no... and I work both ways, I'll tell you the truth. The money's much better when you work for Universal than it is when you work for me. But at the same time, I think that you have your own, a different kind of reward. And the reward is that it's a shot in the dark if you can make it. And that's the reward, and it's yours. It's not mine, it's yours too.
John, when you did Minnie and Moskowitz at Universal, how different was it for you? It seemed to me that they had given you a great deal of time. You worked on the editing at considerable length. Were there pressures on you to make it a special way or to do things differently than you normally do?
No. Work with my own people, our own producer. The crew was a professional crew. It was a good movie. The actors, I chose the actors, and we made the movie basically the way we would make any other movie. And there wasn't any heat on it.
So what's the problem?
And we had 4 cameramen.
At one time?
What was the problem?
Yeah.
There wasn't any problem. The picture just didn't make money. That was the only problem.
Well, no, you said a few moments ago that the way you make pictures is different from the way they make them in the studios. And yet, when you did have the studio experience at Universal, it seems to me that you were doing it in the same way you did when you were working out of Greystone.
Oh no, there are differences, really. There are differences. The differences are in the fact that I can choose people that I want to work with. Anyone.
In terms of crew or actors?
I mean, if I see you, you can be in my movie. If I'm working for a studio, you have to go. I have to go and ask somebody if you could be in the movie in a bar scene, and then somebody said, and then you say, I have a job in John Cassavetes' movie, and I play a part in a bar. And the differences are that I don't want you to say that. I don't want you to feel that. Because by the time you get there, an assistant director is going to greet you and say, oh, Mr. Knight, come this way, please. And then you're going to say, do you know John? Oh, yes, we know each other. Do you know this? Yes, we know each other. Then you're going to go into your dressing room and start shaking. You really will, and you'll come back to do 4 lines. You'll be at a bar and you'll have 4 lines to say, and I'll have to say, Arthur, now this is the scene, and this is what we're doing, and this, so that on those kind of pictures you use professional actors that are used to being tortured and know how to handle it better than amateur actors who just come in wide open. But it's much more difficult for, in other words, I can't use a cameraman I want. I have to use a cameraman that's specified. I got to use his crew. I've got to go by his protocols. And the protocols is this is a unit of a crew. If I want to talk to the operator, I can't talk to the operator really without making sure that the lighting man is not offended. You know, because it's his crew. And I don't want it to be my crew. I don't want it to be anyone's crew. I just want to make the movie. You know, and I want to be able to talk to a guy that I see by a light and say, can we do anything here to help this thing? Because he's a person. I can't tell you how different it is to have to say, to have to work in a professional manner, which is possible to work, to where you say, you have to go to the lighting man and say, could this be different? Because you don't want to tell him. You don't want to be professional with him because then he has nothing to do. You know, yeah. So you say, is there some way the lights can flood through the windows? You know, and he says, of course there is. You know, and I'm not putting him down, but that's the way you communicate with him. You don't communicate on a work basis, you communicate on a social basis. And that social basis, incidental to that social basis, is the work. And it's much too profound for me.
Question here.
Would you be happier doing something like Peter in the Round? I'm just saying, it seems so, just getting out of the technical stuff, want to get into the emotion of the characters and everything else. It just seems like there you would be able to not have to worry about the marks.
The question is, would John be happier with a theater in the round kind of thing, where you don't have to worry about marks and all of the technical?
You're breaking away from it anyway. It seems that, you know, you set it up there like general.
No, what I'm saying is that this entire crew, the people that made this picture technically, had never seen a camera before. You know?
Okay, I understand.
The lighting man came out of the University of North Carolina. He was a student, and he had the courage to plug in the line, to juice the line. None of us had the courage to do that. And he became the lighting man, right? Now, only in America. So 20 years of that could only offend someone else. Do you understand? Now I have to take that guy, and that guy's looking for a job. Now he does know something, right? He does know something. He's made his mistakes. He's experimented around. He knows something. I have to go, and he comes to me and says, can you get me a job? He would have to start in the mailroom at Universal after going through an experience where he's ready to work. Man is ready to work. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, what do you need?
Had nothing to do with the outcome of the movie.
What do you need in the film that theater can't give you?
That theater can't give you? I don't know about you, but I only am in the movies for eternal glory. I don't know why you do movies, but I like to know it's going to be there a long time.
Chris, back here.
I'd like to ask about script. What form of script you work from? How thoroughly you have lines worked out beforehand? You spoke about reading scripts before to get characters. How thoroughly is it done?
Gena could tell you that.
Well, this script was very carefully scripted. Perhaps the difference in the scripts that I see usually is that they have the directions in between the dialogue, whereas John's scripts are loose in that they don't have any prescribed action. I sometimes think that is why people think so often that they're entirely improvised. It's not so much the dialogue that is improvised, but the action. You're not held to any action. You just work it out very freely, and by it not being pushed at you in the script, you don't go in with any, even if, most actors by now take a felt tip pen and cross through everything except dialogue, and you try not to read it, right? I mean, that's a commonly done thing. Still you read it. You can hardly not read it as you're crossing it through, and it colors your performance before you're nearly ready. And but the dialogue and the whole script was really very carefully scripted. This one in particular.
And further on the dialogue, I do write differently than other people. I write looser dialogue, not with the words are there, but they don't necessarily have to come to a conclusion. You know what I mean? It's just what you hear. Very few places in the script do words have any significance. I've had many fights with Elaine May on this, who says, John, you must understand that people do listen to what you are saying. And her view is that the word is gospel, and my view is that it isn't gospel. And that the intention of the actor the intention of that character cannot be altered by having that character commit to sadness, to laughter. In other words, here's where improvisation comes in. Somebody tells a joke within the framework of a scene. In most pictures, you are committed to laugh because it says there is laughter there. I want to give that actor the freedom to be a person. Not to have to act like an idiot. Not to have to act like a buffoon if it's not his own buffoonery. So that you don't have to tell a joke well. You don't have to be good. You don't have to be, if somebody tells you something that you're supposed to cry at and you don't cry and you have some other reaction, I want you to have it. Don't want you to say that everything hinges upon a tear falling down on your eyes. I saw that movie. I don't want to see that again. Because I know that's in a way the greatest form of manipulation. Listen, you can take a movie, and we all know how to make something lonely. You go far away, and you light it very dimly here and there, and very sketchily, and very beautifully, depending on how you want to do it, and you shoot wide angle, and you let a woman wander through the house. It's the easiest way to make a woman lonely. That's the easiest way to make a woman lonely. What is important in the writing of this, of my material at least, is that Gena goes out and takes her kids and sends them away from her house so she can be alone with her husband. Now there isn't one line in there that says, I want to be alone with my husband. She's going about the task of getting her kids off to school, off to her mother's house, as I know that would happen. I didn't know that there would be laughter there. I'm delighted that there's laughter there, but the laughter came out of Gena's mother, who has a delightful and delicious sense of humor. And so when the kids were there, she allowed you she allowed herself to be martyred for a minute. She can't drive worth a damn, you know. So Gena does give her instructions when she's backing out of our driveway, you know. So it's lovely that this repeats itself. I have a clue that this is right. Within the framework of the writing, all that's there is the words. And the rest of it is play, because the people have done some homework and come in with something, and that's why when Gena comes off the porch in her very first line, she says, "Get over there," you know? And you can smell it as true. And I can smell it as I see it, that it's true. The line is still there, you know? The lines of Lady are there when she comes out of the house and she says, "Your mother's very nervous," and you know, I want to be, you know, how that's played could be played farcically, could be played terribly, wonderfully, a million different ways. It's all interpretation. In that sense, it's improvised.
I think we better take about 2 more questions. We've already played longer than Gone with the Wind. You had a question back here.
So when you wrote the character of Mabel for the first part of the movie to be a turning force performance,
Absolutely wrote it to try to write a terrific part for my wife. And then it turned out that you can't do that. It just doesn't work that way. Then you begin to, later on, as you get involved in the story, start to tell something about these people. But the impetus was Gena.
All the way in the back.
I have 2 problems. There are 2 things that affect that. One, I have bad eyes, so that I like to see some things tighter. And the other thing is that occasionally when somebody has a large part, as Gena had, with very little to do, it needs a lot of attention. You know, the rest of the people will get lazy if they don't have anything to do, if there isn't a camera on them. So I occasionally will take another camera, and I want it to be tight because I want to be able to use it. And I still want those people that are playing with Gena not to go cold, because no matter how professional you are, if somebody has a big, you know, let's say I have 9 pages of dialogue, you're going to start to drift, you know? The only way you won't is if you know that you're in the scene also. So the choice of doing that, it's just, I think it's a matter of taste, that I prefer to see somebody, if they're thinking and they're sitting at a table or they're in a confined situation, I prefer to see what their face is like. I prefer to see into them rather than, you know, to see their body movements, because at that point it isn't apropos, I mean, in my opinion. So the tightness, because it is a psychological movie, I think, you know, so it would be.
Herman?
I found the movie, and I've seen most of your other films, such as Space, my feeling and but I thought that the movie was both very engrossing, but also at times very difficult. It's hard to stay with it. And the reason, of course, Peter Falber always is going to bring you back into it, you know. But what I think was important about the movie is it's about sanity. At least partly about who's crazy because, you know, I saw something that was like a domestic catch-22. The only people that I saw in the movie that was very important, I don't even know whether it was the intention, but as far as I was concerned, I have known people like Mabel. I've had food extended liaisons with such women.
Okay.
And to the extent that they were impossible to live with, but afterwards I felt that I had really learned a lot from them, and they had helped me become a better person and more sane. So I felt that I still love them.
guy out, you know. The kids were so honest, they're running around naked, why shouldn't they? That's the truth that says gentlemen, and that was typical of what society just was. That was very important in the film. That's the subliminal message that will, you know, really get to people. But, and this is the other next part, the thing that made me feel bad about the movie, and I started getting on, was that I felt that from the point of view of the guy making the film, you know, how to see the character, you know, I felt the real good person, the heroine, is Mabel. She's good. And those people are fucking her over, and they should be, you know, get rid of them. Or show that they're bad. Show that they're bad.
You're acting just like Nick, I swear to you. You see, this is exactly the point of the movie, is that men really don't know how to behave, no matter what a posture. Women are always talking about making themselves over and not having a role. And I think that men really suffer from a role, if the truth would be told, as much or more than women. I think that Woman Under the Influence is the greatest example of a man working within a framework of a role, and a woman not working. If everything is equal, here's Mabel, and she's not playing any role at all, except she's doing what she thinks that the man wants her to be. Right?
But then obviously becomes, and I wonder if this is what was her intention in choosing the title. Did you mean a woman under the influence of a sick society? You know, or, you know, that's the way I read it.
No, the point is that maybe it is a sick society that we live in. I don't think that those people are sick. I think that they love each other and consequently have a tremendous amount of problems because they do love each other, and they are emotionally ignorant as to what the other one is feeling. But that's the way I feel about it. I think that people that are sick are people that drop bombs, you know, and people that want to kill somebody. That want to kill somebody and don't even mean it. You know.
I can't end this evening without telling you one thing. Many of you came to the room last week for some God knows what reason, thinking we were going to see Woman Under the Influence. How that got around, I don't know. But when I got back from, well, the day after I got back from class, we ran rather late last time too, I called the house and learned from Gena that John was up in San Francisco, but he'd be back on Sunday. I called Sunday. John said, check with my secretary. I don't know what my schedule is. Here they are, and I can't tell you how pleased I am. Thank you very much.